Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Strategically Social. We chose this title very specifically because often we're asked by hoteliers how social marketing or social media fits into their overall strategic plan. Today we're going to discuss why having a presence on social media is important and actually how to approach telling your hotel's story using these platforms. Additionally, we'll hear from a hotel marketing expert how she views these efforts from a property perspective. My name is Darlene Rondo, and I'm Vice President, Best Practices for VFM Leonardo's online merchandising group, and I'll be your host for today's event. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, we'll be recording the webinar. At the conclusion of today's session, we'll be sending you a thank you for joining us email with a link to that recording, which you can share or listen to at your leisure. Additionally, you have a questions dialog box in your GoToMeeting panel. As we move through our discussion today, please feel free to send in your questions, and we'll be addressing those questions throughout our webinar as well as at the end of the presentation as time permits. And as a special fun thing today, we're going to be interjecting a pop quiz during the sessions, so keep your ears open for that as well. We're going to be tweeting during today's presentation, so please feel free to join in the conversation at hashtag VFMLwebinar. So before we begin the webinar and introduce our speakers, I want to conduct a poll because I'd like to understand from the audience, what is your biggest challenge on social media? And so there are three answers on your screen. You can just click the button that most closely reflects your thoughts. So the first answer is choosing which channels to focus on. Is that your greatest challenge on social media? The second answer is knowing what and how often to post. And then thirdly, how to build engagement and likes. And so I see everyone has found the polling dialog box, and people are weighing in. Let's see, almost 70% of you have voted, and it looks like at the moment how to build engagement and likes is in the lead. And then choosing which channels to focus on and knowing what and how often to post seem to be neck and neck. So we'll give everyone a couple more minutes, and I'll share these results with you. And we're going to be addressing these particular topics with you throughout today's webinar. And as I said earlier, you can submit your questions as we go along in the questions dialog box, and we'll be asking our guest speakers to weigh in on that. So the majority of you have voted, and it looks like more than half of you say that how to build engagement and likes is your most challenging effort. And again, neck and neck, knowing what and how often to post and choosing the channels is an issue for you as well. So I'm going to close that poll. Thank you everyone for weighing in. And at this point I'm going to introduce our guest speakers. First, I'd like to welcome Daniel Edward Craig. Daniel Edward Craig is the founder of Reknown, a consultancy that provides strategy, training, and guidelines to hotels and travel organizations worldwide through online marketing, social media, reputation management, and service excellence. With over 20 years of experience in the hotel and travel industries, he's really passionate about innovative online marketing and strongly believes in the power of visual storytelling. Welcome back to our webinar, Daniel. Pleased to have you.
Thank you very much, Darlene. Great to be here. And sorry, go ahead.
And I'd also like to introduce our second guest speaker, Monica Rafter. Monica Rafter is based in Tucson, Arizona, and is the owner of Reknown Marketing Communications, a company designed to support and expedite marketing efforts of hospitality-related businesses and organizations. Monica has over 30 years of expertise in the hotel and hospitality industries, including almost 20 years as the Director of Conference Planning and Catering for the Westin La Paloma Resort and Spa. Monica, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Darlene.
And now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Daniel, who is going to take us through the first section of our webinar today. Daniel?
All right. Thank you, Darlene. Well, as Darlene mentioned, I've worked in hotels for about 20 years, and I started on the front desk and worked my way through various positions, and eventually I became a general manager. And I was a general manager of a hotel called Opus in Vancouver, and we were an early adopter of social media. We started the first ever hotel blog back in 2006, and it attracted a worldwide following for telling kind of irreverent insider stories about the hotel, things that your typical general manager wouldn't talk about, like why we overbook and relocate guests and what it feels like to get a bad review. And as a result, it really helped put the hotel on the map, and so we discovered early on the power of social media and storytelling. Now, I left Opus to focus on my secondary career as a mystery writer, and I've published 3 mysteries set in hotels, and that allowed me to combine my love of the hotel industry with my love of storytelling. And actually, in my first book, Murder of the Universe, in the first chapter, the general manager of a hotel in New York is murdered, and a lot of hotel employees buy that book just based on that premise.
Just the title alone.
Exactly. So now I run my own consultancy, Reknown, which specializes in social media strategy and online reputation management, and a big part of social media, as we'll talk about, is storytelling. So storytelling is a long-standing tradition. People have been telling stories since the time of cave dwellers. The only thing that really has changed is the platforms. The internet and social media have created unprecedented platforms and audiences for sharing stories. And with all the comings and goings hotels have, there's really no shortage of stories to tell. But I don't think we should be intimidated by the word story. A story can be long or short. It can be simple or complex. It can be as simple as a like or a tweet, a Facebook update, a photo, or a blog post. All of these tell a story.
And so, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, we are going to do a pop quiz. So I see that many of you have found that questions dialog box. The first person to enter the correct answer in the questions dialog box is going to win a Starbucks gift card, and you must correctly identify both of these answers to win. So the question is, which 2 video sharing apps owned by Twitter and Facebook have come on the scene to allow consumers to share 6-second and 15-second videos? So again, the first person to enter the correct answer wins the Starbucks gift card. Wow, the answers, the dialog box is going crazy. And so looks like the winner came in pretty quickly. Let's see. As Daniel finishes his section, we'll go back and see who the winner is and announce that in a little bit. So thanks everybody for weighing in. Appreciate it.
So you leave them in suspense for now.
Leave them in suspense for now, and there were so many questions that came in, the names are running off my screen, so I'll have a look at that in just a second.
Okay, and I'll touch on a bit about video storytelling shortly. Now, so why is storytelling so important? Well, there are really 2 types of stories. The stories that we tell as marketers and those that our guests tell about our hotel. And Nielsen's latest global trust survey found that consumers trust recommendations from people they know and from consumer opinions posted online more than any other advertising source. Why? Well, because these people aren't trying to sell us something. They're people like us. So this means as marketers, we have to work even harder to tell convincing stories. And to be truly successful, we need to shift resources toward getting people talking about and recommending our hotel. And social media provides powerful platforms for doing exactly that. Now, it's helpful to divide online content into three types: paid, owned, and earned content. So first of all, paid content is the stuff we pay for: display ads, cost per click, listings on online travel agencies, things like that. And that messaging we have higher control over because we pay for it. But as we saw from the Nielsen slide, it has lower influence on consumer opinions. So the second part is owned content. So the stuff that we own and we control the messaging, like our brand website, Facebook page, Twitter feed. And so we have higher control over that messaging, but again, it has a lower influence as per that Nielsen survey. So the third part is earned content, and that's what other people are saying about our brand. We also call this user-generated content: reviews, photos, videos, media coverage, blogs, and all those social endorsements like likes and shares and comments. So we don't have as much control over the messaging in that content, but it has a higher influence on consumer opinions.
Daniel, you may be covering this in a minute, but Susan in our audience asked which area of those three pieces of content should she focus on?
Yeah, well, I'm just about to talk about that. That's a great segue into my next slide.
Great.
More and more what you're seeing is converged content, a mix of all three to maximize your reach. So here you've got the Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts Facebook page. They do an amazing job on Facebook. And you've got a post from Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts about a contest they're holding. So, and then there's a little ad on the side. So when you look at that, ask yourself what on this page is paid and what is owned and what is earned content. Well, first of all, the owned content, the stuff that Four Seasons controls, is the Facebook page itself, and then the message itself, the post that they control the messaging on. And then the earned content is, first of all, at the top, how many likes, how many people are talking about the page and Four Seasons content. But then at the bottom, the earned content is what people are, how they're sharing it, liking it, commenting on it. And we're really amplifying it by getting people to share that message about this contest here. And then finally, if the Four Seasons decided to pay for an ad to amplify, to increase its reach, that would be, of course, paid content. So more and more we're seeing all these working together in campaigns to really maximize content, and how much of each will depend on, of course, the campaign, the resources available, the time, etc. So how to make the most of your messaging? Well, you need to be strategic about it, and part of that involves telling a good story. A good story grabs attention, inspires action, and is shared and remembered. Now, these rules apply for all types of storytelling, but social media especially, because it's really not easy to stand out in social media. There's so much noise. But when we do post good content, it is shared, and that's one of our key objectives in social media. Here at the bottom of the slide, you can see a headline from a TripAdvisor review. Well, we can learn a lot about storytelling from our guests. Part of the reason reviews are so popular is they are often told like a story. With a gripping lead like this one, how could you not read that review? As well as helpful information, sometimes humor, and yes, occasionally horror and fiction. As marketers, We should, of course, steer away from the fairy tales and the fantasy in our storytelling. But we want to be inspiring and practical and authentic in the stories that we share.
And the other thing, Daniel, Melissa from our audience was saying, she said, I hear a lot that people do not want to be sold to in on Facebook. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think everybody would pretty much agree because, as well as being marketers, we're consumers of social media as well, and we don't want to be overtly sold to. That said, there's got to be a little bit of it because it is a marketing tool, and I've seen surveys that have said that the biggest reason that people follow brands on Facebook, for example, is to get access to specials and discounts.
Hmm, interesting.
So I think it's being clever about it and not too obnoxious. And when I see sales run into a story, I find that a lot more appealing than your blatant advertising.
Yeah, good point.
Oops. So photos and videos tell stories too, of course, often more powerfully than words because they visually transport the viewer. So social networks like Pinterest, Instagram, and YouTube are particularly effective because they combine the two most powerful aspects of social media, imagery and sharing. And of course, with photos, there's no translation required. It's a universal language, not like with text. Here on Pinterest, Abercrombie and Kent Villas and Chalets does a great job of telling stories with images and divides them by themes like golf, romance, sunset, and of course the requisite food porn. Everybody seems to love looking at pictures of food on social media. And so you might not necessarily you don't have to be on Pinterest, but you can learn from this approach to visual storytelling. So video has dramatically increased in popularity as a travel planning and a sharing tool. Video content is effective because it's easy to digest online, and unlike words, which can be exaggerated, they can mislead, and photos can be photoshopped, it's hard to fake video. It tells the real story. So social networks like Vine and Instagram video are particularly compelling because they challenge you to create videos in just a few seconds. And here, a traveler tells all you need to really know about a room in just 6 seconds on Vine.
It's amazing that you're actually able, in 6 seconds, it doesn't seem like a long time, but the fact that you can actually communicate a message or thought in 6 seconds is amazing.
Yeah, it's quite mesmerizing to watch these 6 second Vine videos.
I know. Here's a question, Daniel, from Jeannie. She wants to know, how important is it to gain followers?
How important is it to gain followers? It's a really good question, and actually we're going to get to that. But briefly, it's not a numbers game. It's about the quality of who is following you. Are they genuinely interested in your brand? And we're going to talk about contests shortly, and so hold that thought, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly.
Great, thanks.
So here are a few tips for maximizing effectiveness when telling stories visually. So combine photos, videos, and virtual tours. Each format is a bit different, and together they have the highest impact. It's something VFM Leonardo's V-Brochure does a great job at. Produce professional and social imagery. Social media has an insatiable appetite for imagery. Hotels not only need a library of professional imagery to showcase your property, but also a stream of social imagery shot by staff that tells the day-to-day stories of happenings at your hotel. When it comes to professional imagery, bear in mind that when travelers are trying to choose a hotel, they're not really interested in photos of those ecstatic couples clinking champagne glasses in hotel bathrobes. They want to know what rooms look like, what the restaurant looks like, the lobby, the local area. And as you can see from this image from a study from VFM Leonardo, information I've been looking at for years now, it shows the top 10 viewed images on travel websites. So be sure to make this type of photo prominent on the channels where traveling and comparing. So that means your website, online travel agency listings, TripAdvisor, and brochures. So with social imagery, for things like Facebook and Twitter, you have more flexibility. You can go behind the scenes, show events, activities in the local area, of course pictures of food, and you can have a bit more fun. Encourage guests to share. Remember, imagery shared by your guests has more impact. Ask permission. Always ask owners of visuals permission before you use their content, and give them credits. And finally, optimize. Now, it's no longer enough to optimize imagery for your website. You have to optimize it in order to be found on Google and Facebook's graph search, and on Pinterest, Instagram, and Twitter. So optimizing means tagging it with the hotel's brand name, location, description of the activity, and always using consistent hashtags. So finally, a key part of storytelling in social media is building a community or an audience and engaging them. And you know, Facebook can be kind of a lonely place. You sometimes feel a bit unloved on Facebook. You post that brilliant comment and you think it's going to get so much reaction, and then you get one sad little like from that one person who likes everything. And so getting back to that question, which is a great question, I don't think it's a contest to amass the most likes. And I think sometimes we get pressure from management or ownership. How come we're not popular? We only have, you know, 150 likes. What's more important is who is liking you. Are they genuinely interested in your brand? Now, I want to go over some guidelines, but first of all, let's have a look at two posts here. These are two images on Facebook that I found on my feed a couple weeks ago during the Canadian Thanksgiving, and both, one on the left, one on the right, they're on the same topic. They have essentially the same message, Happy Thanksgiving. But one on the left received only 8 likes, no comments, 1 share. The other received 295 likes, 9 comments, and 14 shares. What's the difference? Well, the main difference here is that one person cut and pasted a nice but kind of boring graphic from the internet, something anybody can do. The other got up from his behind, went outside, and took a photo of the view from the property. Now, not everybody, of course, has this amazing view from their property, but there are things that we can learn about how to engage our guests, whether you're a budget motel or a luxury resort.
Teresa's just commenting, Daniel, that she loved that last slide. Loved that comparison.
Okay. Glad to hear it. Thanks, Teresa. So to build communities and engagement, we need to go to the back to the basics of winning friends and influencing people. Dale Carnegie's book, it's probably 100 years old, but it still applies more than ever, especially to social media. So first, so you want to be liked? Well, be likable. That means helpful, resourceful, curious, funny, a good listener. Social media is a service channel as well as a marketing channel. Be relevant. A Facebook study found that by far the biggest predictor of engagement is the relevance of messaging to brand. So you can leave those cute gangster kitty photos for your personal Facebook page and focus on branding. Next are your staff, your partners, suppliers, the people you give business to. Are they following you? Are they supporting your content? If they're not, ask them to. Then share and share like. Be a good neighbor. Support your followers, your destination, local businesses by sharing their content when it's interesting and relevant. Now, I mentioned contests. I think with contests, it's important to avoid campaigns that are intended to stockpile likes, like Likegate contests, like our page to win. Because what happens is you end up with people who aren't really interested in your brand. They just want free stuff. Instead, target people who would actually pay for a room if they didn't win, and engage them by asking them to interact meaningfully with your brand. For example, ask them to vote on a new product or service or an idea, hold a quiz, add them to tag imagery with your hotel name, and then finally, you can pay to amplify your post, amplify your owned and earned media with paid media. And that, my friends, is the end of my story.
Well, thanks, Daniel. Always, always informative. I know the audience, just based on all the questions that have been coming in, were really engaged in what you had to say. So, just to recap, Daniel's section, really leverage all three social content elements by combining them to heighten their effectiveness. And then, we all remember stories that touch us in some way. So focus on telling yours on these social channels. And then lastly and importantly, who doesn't want to be liked, but it's important to demonstrate that you actually deserve to be in your guest's good graces. So as Daniel just pointed out, be helpful, resourceful, listen well. And if you're not the person at your property who may be, the witty one, or the person who's, maybe the most qualified to engage on Facebook, there are probably folks around you who may like that responsibility. Because I know we always get that question, wow, who manages Facebook at the property? And so you can share some of the responsibility as well. So, tell your hotel story in an engaging and compelling way on social media. As Daniel mentioned, VFM Leonardo has 5 multimedia-based Facebook apps that can take visitors on a visual tour that will help them explore your guest rooms, event spaces, meeting rooms, special offers. And it's important to note that this solution for your Facebook business pages is actually included in your vBrochure Ultra Premium license at no additional charge. So with that, we're going to hear from Monica on how to make it real from a property perspective. So Monica, I am going to turn the keyboard and mouse over to you, and you can take it from here.
Thanks so much, Darlene. I'm going to begin today by asking you a question. Who would appear on a list of your very, very favorite novelists today? Might you consider a John Grisham or a Robert Ludlum or a Stephen King? Well, maybe, but why is who on your list? Well, likely the storytellers on your list are going to be prolific because they give us what we as readers want, which is interesting stories and compelling characters, those that we've come to love or hate. And the fact of the matter is, good novelists captivate us. They involve us in their story. And we as readers keep turning the pages or swiping our e-reader screens because we choose to do so because they, the novelists, have hooked us. And the underlying premise of social media storytelling is exactly the same. And it's more important than ever for reasons that Daniel just shared. Like great novelists, social media storytellers must know how to captivate their audience and harness the power of both language and emotion. The art of social media storytelling comes down to just 3 steps. First of all, what is your story? Secondly, sharing your story. And third, analyzing the responses to what you've shared or said and learn what's worked and what hasn't, and then tweak for future. I'm having a little difficulty with my slides here.
I've taken control back of the slides, Monica.
Oh, you did? All right, great. Having a great story starts with understanding what your hotel or business unit is all about, how it came to be, what it is today, its overriding vision and mission, and then it's being able to weave what's interesting about that into consistent posts or messages, images or videos that will be equally interesting to someone who has no knowledge of your hotel or business, and do it in a way that will elicit emotion from the person who views it. Eliciting emotion and hopefully action is what makes an okay story a great story, or an okay post a great post. Every bit of content you write or image you take needs to tell that story, because every image you post is a story, or every video you shoot and share is a story. Great stories connect with their readers and viewers. Great stories engage and resonate and connect. And that means you have to know and understand your customers and prospects. So I love this slide. I love BASF. Back in the 1990s, that world's largest chemical company, which didn't mean anything to most anybody in the consumer world, produced a brilliant and wildly successful ad campaign. Because when touting itself to consumers the old-fashioned way, top-down, which was the only way back then, BASF knew that what it did for a living didn't matter one tiny bit to consumers. So it spun what it did instead. And here's what they came up with. BASF, we don't make the blah, blah, blah. We make the blah, blah, blah better. And on your social media channels, here's that takeaway. Don't sell your hotel or its features. Share how your hotel and its features will make the viewers feel. And as for your marketing goals, nobody cares but you. But a good story is something altogether different. So the goal is to go out and engage and inspire. And remember, you don't have to be a master content marketer to do social media effectively. I like to think about social media this way. Imagine yourself at a cocktail party, because the art of the successful cocktail party conversation is exactly the same as social media storytelling. First of all, why are you there? To see and be seen, right? Maybe if it's a business-related cocktail party, it's because you have to be. And if it's personal, it's likely because you want it to be. But probably you're there to mingle with those you know quite well, with those who know you a little bit, and to hopefully meet and engage a few folks you don't know, right?
I love this analogy, Monica, because you know, we're talking about a real life social environment compared to an electronic social environment, but there's so many commonalities between the two.
Exactly right. So what do you do at a cocktail party? Well, if you want to get the most out of the party, you'd work the crowd. You'd connect. You'd acknowledge and seek out and interact with those who presumably already like you a lot. And then you'd go after the folks you already know like you a little bit. And then you'd set out to get to know and then maybe even intrigue those you don't know, but you want or need to know. But for sure you wouldn't go out and do an outright pitch to a stranger. And you wouldn't presume to think that those strangers would care about you until you gave them a reason, right? So how would you act? Well, you'd engage. You'd engage. After all, that's the very reason you're at the party in the first place. Now, we'd acknowledge that your way of interacting with your friends with whom you are familiar may be very different from the way you approach strangers. You're likely to behave a little bit more carefree and casual the closer and longer term the relationships, and a bit more careful and cautious with the shorter term relationships or brand new ones, but you still engage. You make them want to be with you more often and always, no matter what you're sharing, no matter what you're saying, and no matter what you're doing, because they like you that much. So how would the conversation start? Well, no matter what the relationship, your choice of words are going to be, guess what? Conversational. You're going to spin and weave stories or information of interest to your listener. You're not likely going to launch into a presentation all about you or about how you are or what you've been doing or what you're going to do, because nobody cares, not until you give them a reason. Instead, you'll choose most successfully to play into the hands of those with whom you're talking. You're going to seek common ground. You're going to learn about their interests. You're going to ask them about what's new with them. You're going to get to know what's important to them, what's new in their world. You're going to find ways of how you fit together, either professionally or personally, and discover future opportunities. And what's your cocktail party tone? Well, it's sincere, it's warm, it's friendly, it's familiar, maybe not overly so. At times you may even get playful or even direct, but probably not overly dramatic. And how do you keep the conversation going? Well, first of all, by always being interested and then being interesting. Now, you're interested and you accomplish this by making it all about them, ultimately so that they will so value you that they'll want to share you with others. And as far as being interesting, how does a business create this cocktail feeling, this cocktail party feeling on Facebook, for example? Well, how about promoting something other than you, or promoting something other than your business? Maybe it's your destination, or support an associate in your organization, or a local event of which you may be a sponsor, even a non-competitor's success. You'd mix it up. You'd share, not sell. You'd share, not tell. You'd discover and explore common interests, and then if you were serious, you'd follow up. So whether it's Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Pinterest or Google+, you want to consider each post every time a virtual cocktail party. Now, bells, whistles, gimmicks, they absolutely work and they have great value if played not all that often. So as Daniel was suggesting earlier, devising a contest, drumming up a short survey, dreaming up a sweepstakes, investing or testing in some social media ads, those are all good. Most important, though, is just keep interacting. So how do you prepare for the social media party? How do you get ready for the party? Well, you ensure your hotel or organization is set up to do social media successfully. And that means just implementing some basic systems or procedures or protocol, put those in place that work for your organization based on your business needs, your staffing, and your expectations. And absolutely establish some social media expectations. Seriously, what do you want out of your social media? And then identify which social media channels your business will engage on. How often, what time of day. And then probably most important is to determine who in or outside your organization is best equipped, either technologically or other skill set wise, to do it. Who's your best and brightest on-site, in-the-know person? Who is savvy enough to know what's interesting that's going on each and every day 24/7 at your property? Who can discern what can be spun? Who knows how to spin it and do so in the voice of your business and do so consistently? It's all about the art of the conversation. Who in your organization can best converse with your audience across your selected social media channels? Next would be organize and budget your social team, even if that may mean it's only a team of one. Shouldn't be anybody's side job or when I have time job, unless you're willing to be okay with side results. An ideal social media property level storyteller candidate is a great listener, a great observer, a great collaborator, and a visionary sort who understands prospects and customers and understands their pain and delight. Now, I would love to attribute this next quote, which is absolutely a truism to the appropriate source. But
Hey, Monica, before we get there,
yeah.
Natasha has a question,
Sure.
and it has to do with your third bullet, identifying which social media channels to focus on. Natasha's asking, how do I know what channels to focus on? Because there's so many.
She's right. She's absolutely right. I'm not sure there's a right or wrong answer here, but the basics, especially when you're starting, the basics are perhaps your best, and those that mix up the way that you can tell the stories would be your best, which would mean Facebook, just from a sheer numbers standpoint. Link your Twitter account to Facebook so that you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. Pinterest, because you can tell stories visually. Google Plus, again, because of volume. I think those would be my, and then YouTube because of videos. Those would be my go-to social media suggestions. If you didn't do anything else, those would be my basics.
Yeah, I think those are good suggestions, Monica. And here's that quote that you love.
Yes, I love, and I would love to tell you, I would love to attribute this appropriately. Suffice it to say that it was in a recent white paper that I downloaded, and even the white paper, if I gave credit to the white paper, they only referred to this person as, quote, one social leader. But the fact of the matter is once you get on social media, you can't say you're there and expect it to be okay. You can't run like a Toyota if you don't give it some maintenance and a little bit of attention from time to time.
Another good analogy.
So, what can provide inspiration to you for your social media posts? Well, routine musings from a hotel's daily stand-up meeting can be excellent fodder for posts and images. What's going on? Who's going to be there? What's visually stimulating? And I cannot stress enough the importance of an on-site digital camera in the hands of somebody who can see things of interest every day and capture them. Many of the most viewed, most liked, and most valued Facebook posts are ones that are just like this one here, because they're images that reflect things that people can connect with: weather, seasons, landscape, events, fun, some sense of place, what someone else said about your business, links that include reviews about your business, because what's most important is that you didn't say it. Therefore, it has value. It's why videos are also so popular. Now, some totally ROI-focused business leaders can't stand what they'll call throwaway types of posts, because, but they're the ones that matter the most, because they're the ones that are creating emotion and connection, and that's exactly what social media storytelling is all about. Now, use your social media to link or connect to everything possible, because this you can do subtly but factually without being pushy. So, for example, use your Facebook apps to connect everything that you possibly can want to connect. You can use virtual tours, or you can link to every booking engine that you possibly have, whether it's guest rooms or dining or golf tee times or spa. You can also cross promote other social media. You can actually create a Pinterest app and send them to your Pinterest page. You can use an employment app so that you can get employment online applications and engagements that way. You can post all of your videos if you've created them, but you're not pushing them in the face of your customers. You can put out your special offers, which is particular case, it's a VFM app, a tour app that is also valuable. Again, not pushing, it's just available. You can use special event apps, or you can even solicit further email signups.
This is a really good example, Monica, of you're only limited by your own creativity, right? So I think what you said is right on. Focus on what's important to your business, and then you can tailor these pages specific to you. And I think putting in this Pinterest app in here, because we often get questions on how do I drive more visits to my social sites. This is a great example of cross-pollinating.
Exactly. And bottom line is, my closing parting salvo would be, don't be afraid. Just get out there and tell it. And your responses will tell you how you're doing, and you'll know what to do in the future. Just do it.
Excellent. Thanks, Monica. And just to recap what Monica just took us through, Forrester tells us that people who engage with you are your best customers. So treat them accordingly. And then once you take on the responsibility of engaging on social channels, keep with it. Stagnant or infrequent interaction with your guests are going to disappoint them and not serve you well. If your guests are sharing your story, you've really won the social lottery. So find your biggest fans and then give them a story to tell, as Seth Godin tells us. And then again, Monica's parting words, just do it. And I think Daniel would agree with this, is, social, especially, solutions like Twitter, they don't last a long time. So, if you do something and you see that it's resonating, excellent, keep doing it. And if you do it and it's not resonating, you know what, you can quickly change direction. That's the beauty of social sometimes. So turn your hotel's Facebook page into a booking conversion tool as well. There is a booking widget on each of the VFM Leonardo apps that will lead visitors down that booking path if in fact they're ready to make a booking, that is fully integrated with your hotel's booking engine, so that provides a seamless experience for them on Facebook when they're ready to take that next step. So we've had a ton of questions come in, but I just want to ask everybody to weigh in on this next poll, because it's really important to us to understand what our audience thought of the content today. So there are 3 answers to the question. Based on today's content, do you think you'd join us at a future webinar on a different topic? So I'm going to let everyone weigh in. Thank you, everybody. I see that you found the polling capability, and so by and large, the majority of folks have said yes, they'll join us on another webinar. So really appreciate that. Formally, we are at the end of our time commitment, but there have been so many questions. For those of you who want to stay and hear Daniel and Monica answer a few more of your questions, we're going to hang on for a few more minutes and address those questions. And I am going to just do some final housekeeping items. You'll see invitations to future webinars in your emails. The next big one we have coming up is Planning for 2014. I think that'll be a good one. And a lot of you have asked during the session, can they receive a recording of the webinar or the PowerPoint? And yes, absolutely, we're going to send you an email with a link to that recording as well. So I'm going to keep this contact information up on the screen. A lot of you have asked for Daniel and Monica's contact information, so I'll keep this up on the screen as well. So let's just tee up a couple of questions, and this I found interesting, and Daniel, this may be more to you. Ben is asking, can you talk a little bit more about tagging or hashtagging in posts. Is there a lot of value to them? Ben thinks there is, but wondering if you had any feedback on that.
Yeah, I think hashtagging has become a basic communication tool on social networks. It started, I don't know where it started, but Twitter was when I first started using hashtags. And now Facebook has hashtags, Pinterest, Instagram, all of them. So I think it's important to have a hashtag for your, obviously your brand name, but maybe a slogan type hashtag that's unique to your brand that you can use consistently across platforms, because essentially a hashtag allows people to categorize and search information and sift through the thousands and thousands of messaging that are on these social networks to find information on a topic that's of interest to them. So that's, yeah, that's what I'd say is important as far as hashtags go.
Excellent. Here's another question, and Julia's asking, we didn't talk about Instagram per se. You know, there's so many social channels to focus on, but Monica, Daniel, any brief words on where you see Instagram fitting into all of this?
Monica, do you want to take that?
Actually, I was going to leave that one for you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Instagram. It's funny. I was at a family gathering a few months ago, and I was the only adult that had Instagram, and I was playing Instagram with a bunch of my nieces and nephews. And the adults had no idea what we were doing. So it's definitely popular with younger people, but that is changing. Since it was purchased by Facebook, it now has over 130 million active users. And as you know, the whole theme of this webinar is visual storytelling, and social media is all about sharing. So Instagram's a great way of doing it, and it's also interfaced with Facebook, Twitter, etc. So as you said, Darlene, the cross-pollination. You can keep an Instagram feed alive without a lot of maintenance. So I think it's fast becoming an important tool.
Great, thanks. Here's another question from Nikki, and he's saying their Facebook pages have 800 likes, but only 307 talk about or engage. He wants to know, how can he improve this number, or in your opinion, is that a pretty good ratio? Daniel?
Okay. Well, that sounds like a great ratio to me. But if you're taking it from the number talking about from your Facebook page, who's talking about your brand or whatever, that's not necessarily just your Facebook followers, your fans. That can be mentions on other pages, from what I understand. But to me, it sounds like a great ratio. If you've got almost half of your fans engaged, because talking about is based on engagement in the past week, unless that's changed. So yeah, it sounds to me, on the surface, I'd have to analyze it a bit further, but on the surface it sounds like they're doing a pretty good job.
I agree. I think those are really good numbers, depending on how he views engagement. But that's a really good ratio, I think. So kudos. Whatever you're doing seems to be working. And then Monica, I think this one is for you, from Susan. She wants to see more. She'd like to hear more concrete examples of some good social things that a hotel can do at the property level. So, I've heard of things where a hotel will put just a little card beside the bed with a QR code where they can scan the QR code, and then that takes them to a TripAdvisor page where they can comment on the hotel's service. I thought that was kind of neat and pretty interesting to do, to get engagement. Any other thoughts or things that you've seen?
Short of actually requesting participation in things, out and out requesting for solicitation of responses. The things that I see that consistently engage folks are just the oddities of what's happening on site, of something that's new or that's different, or as seen by somebody on the property that would say, someone would like this. I like this. Someone else would like this. Daniel was talking about food porn. A food tasting at a restaurant, or somebody special being on site to see if you could just capture the attention, and then images of anything that is just unusual. Deer crossing a golf course with a post, or like that Cedar Brook double rainbow, something that somebody sees and says, "There's no point in this. There's no reason for this, but isn't this awesome, or isn't this cool?" in whatever generation you want to be speaking in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. Well, everybody, that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for everyone. In fact, the majority of folks have stayed with us right to the end for all of these questions. And as I said, there are a lot of ways to reach us. The contact information is on there, as well as you will get a "thank you for joining us" email in the next day or so. And so you can contact us that way. Thank you, Daniel,
Darlene?
and Craig.
Thank you.
Yes, Darlene, do we get to hear the winner?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that was, let's just see here. It is Mitz Patel. So Mitz, if you're still with us, thank you very much. You were the first one to share the correct answer, which is Vine and Instagram. So, oh yes, he's still with us. He said yay. So Mitz will be in touch with you and sending you your Starbucks gift card. Thanks for joining us in that little quiz today. That was fun. And thank you, Daniel, for reminding me.
Sure.
So as always, Daniel from Reknown, thanks. Monica Rafter from Right on Marketing Communications, thank you. I know it's always really important to hear from a property perspective what's going on the topic. So thanks to everyone. Thursday is the new Friday, so enjoy your weekend. Talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.